Hello and welcome to Beyond Business, the program where we look at the latest trends in the global economy. Today we're looking at how the fight against terrorism and crime has turned into big business. Investors seem increasingly willing to flash their cash to get part of the action. It comes at a time when the security industry has grown in both size and scope. It now includes cybersecurity as well as camera systems that can track and identify unwanted individuals. Let's take a look in this report from London.
Nowadays, it's impossible to drive discreetly on the road. Everywhere there are surveillance cameras and software programs tracking us down, even when we are on foot. British companies are at the forefront of this sector. One of them is called Omniperception. It's based in Guildford, south of London. Among other things, it develops a facial recognition system.
If you're looking for bad people, then if a person who's banned from a store walks in, you can escort them off the premises. If a VIP walks in, then you can automatically recognise the VIP and give them a gin and tonic or a beer, whatever.
Our visit here failed to go unnoticed. The computer immediately spotted us.
The facial recognition camera that's at our door is constantly looking for people on our watch list. It will take pictures of people as they walk in the door, and that's exactly what has happened here. So a picture of Minel has been captured and the alarm was generated.
These Big Brother technologies face a promising future.
There are statistics out there at the moment which are saying that face recognition will be growing around about 30 to 35% per annum per year. And these are huge growth figures. So there's a big opportunity for us.
Surveillance of casinos, of private and public areas, the industry is booming. Richard Lever from Britain is the head of Blue Star Capital, an investment fund that specialises in the security sector. His fund owns Omniperception. We meet him in his London office.
Homeland security is very much a benevolent sector, crossing many different applications and areas and touching people's lives to help and enrich lives. But it's coming really from funding which has come out of the defence world.
Most of the managers at Blue Star Capital are defence experts. There's a former police officer, military specialists, a former member of the British Special Forces. Richard Lever explains that most of Blue Star Capital's investments take place in Britain. Is it a kind of economic protectionism?
We wouldn't seek to protect our companies in that sense. One has to nurture a company to become a global leader in its area, and necessarily that means outside the UK. And traditionally, companies that have done very well in this sphere in the UK do very well in America.
In the US, the Chertoff Group is a security consultancy firm and a major partner of Blue Star Capital.
The Chertoff Group is headed by Secretary Michael Chertoff, who, as you know, was the Secretary of State in the US for Homeland Security under George Bush. And we have a very close working relationship with Chertoff Group, both in Washington and in London. But they're more a risk management consulting group.
This British firm, with its investment funds specialised in the security sector, is unique in Europe. It means Anglo-Saxon firms in this area are currently far ahead of their European rivals.
At check-in desks, spot checks with mobile.
Okay, for more now we can turn to Michael Weatherseed, who's General Manager of Millipol. It's an annual security technology exhibition which alternates between Paris and Qatar's capital, Doha. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
Now, what kind of interest is there in security technologies like facial recognition that we just saw there in that report?
There's a great deal of interest. I think if you go back to the basics, when video surveillance came in, and that particularly in London, which has a lot of video surveillance cameras on the public street, it's all very well filming people, but you actually have to analyse the data. Mm-hmm. And often the personnel aren't behind there to actually analyse that data. So often you analyse it after something has happened.
There are more cameras than there are security personnel looking at each screen.
Exactly. What facial recognition does is actually enable fewer people to actually manage it, and there's an automatic alarm that goes off if a face is recognised in a crowd that actually happens to be in a database of a known criminal or a known terrorist. So it actually enables people to react quickly rather than after the event. And just to add on to it, I mean, we talk about facial recognition. That's one step forward. The next step, which actually exists as well, is actually a camera being able to identify behavior of people that is suspicious.
All right, people who look nervous, basically.
Not necessarily, just people behaving in a suspicious way, where they're trying to hide or actually trying to hide away, or various things, so that you can pre-identify potential problems. What
other trends are there when it comes to security technologies?
Actually, at the moment, the security is still a huge subject. It's still a big issue for all governments. But at the same time, governments, particularly in the financial crisis that Europe is going through at the moment, are also trying to watch their budgets. So what governments are trying to do are looking for technologies that will help them save money, be more efficient. So that means, for example, a policeman who is perhaps in his car actually having a lot more tools that he can carry out a lot of his duties while he's on the road, rather than having to come back to the police station to actually deal with that.
Now, you say that governments are looking to cut their budgets at the moment and to save cash. Does that mean then that this sector, is it growing or is it shrinking at this stage?
The sector is certainly, it has been growing for several years. I think it's stabilising now. I wouldn't say it's declining in terms of that, but governments on the whole are looking at their total budgets. But security is obviously something that they don't particularly want to limit.
Are there any figures on how big this market is? It seems quite murky from a layman's perspective. You're the expert. How much is this market worth on an annual basis?
I wouldn't use the word murky, but it's actually very difficult to actually find figures of the size of the market. Part of the problem is, how do you define security? Do you include in there private security firms? Do you include locks? Do you include alarms that go into protecting factories? But there are no generalised figures. The governments don't actually publicise how much they spend on, let us call it, homeland security. But the major problem is actually defining what we mean by security.
How do you define it?
I would define it in different ways. I would split it. Millipol looks after internal state security. So we're looking at everything that is done by police, the gendarmerie, for example, by anti-terrorism forces, as well as people dealing with disaster management. So everything that comes in from a Ministry of Interior or a Home Office that comes in there. So in my terms of definition of internal state security, I wouldn't include, for example, protecting a factory, unless it was something like of significant strategic value, like a nuclear power station or something like that. We'd call that a sensitive site or a sensitive infrastructure site.
If we look at the sector that you just explained to us there, that you just sort of outlined, who are the big players? Who are the companies that are acting within this field?
In terms of the very big players, there are probably about 5 or 6. There is Safran Morpho from France, which is very much into identification. There is Thales, another French company, EADS, which is Franco-German. You have Rheinmetall from Germany, and you have BAE Systems from the UK. But the vast majority of people working within the interior security sector are small to medium-sized companies, and that's where a lot of the innovation comes in.
You just mentioned a couple of companies there. There seem to be more French than there are British companies. And in the report, we got the sense perhaps that the British and American companies are at the forefront of this sector. You don't agree?
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the French don't have to be jealous about their position within the internal state security industry. France has a very, very strong industry. And as I said, what with Safran Morpho, what with Thales, which are 2 French companies, EADS, which is Franco-German, that's 3 of the 5 big players in the world which actually have a link into France. And as well, we have a very active sector in small and medium-sized companies. So I wouldn't agree that France is way behind the Anglo-Saxons in this industry.
It seems as if the way of investing here in France, though, is different. It's the French state, perhaps more, that does the investments, whereas in the UK, for instance, we are seeing these kind of funds like Blue Star Capital.
Yeah, in France, there are private investment funds, but fairly few. The major financial aid comes from either the state, either a national or regional level, and it's probably a reflection of the way the difference if we take between France and Great Britain. If we take the railways, In the UK, they've been totally privatised. That is the way that the British government decided to go, whereas they're state-run in France. I mean, the two choices, and I think that reflects the culture of the two countries.
Now, you said before that a lot of these companies are actually small and medium-sized enterprises, so-called SMEs. Should governments be looking at ways to support these SMEs, or are they going to do well in and of themselves?
I think that the companies and SMEs have to have a good product to succeed. They don't have a good product, they're not going to succeed, whether you pump money into them or not. So I think that there's a point of in that if you don't have the good product, you're not going to work. So yes, to support them. There are a lot of support mechanisms available. A lot of them are not known by SMEs. But I think one point to make here is that it's not just the security industry that is being supported. Lots of other industries, SMEs, are being supported through government subsidies. They're trying to encourage innovation. They're trying to encourage export. They're trying to encourage job creation, just like every other government does.
It's all about innovation, by the sounds of it.
Innovation is the key word in terms of security. Technological innovation is basically the most important aspect of it.
All right, as in many other businesses. Michael Weathersea, thanks very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us here at France 24.
Thank you, Marcus.
And with that, we're going to wrap up this programme. Thanks for watching Beyond Business and France 24. Do stay with us. More news is coming next.